A miracle in the making. The sleepy town of Cedar Ridge had always been a quiet place where neighbors knew each other by name and life moved at a slow, predictable pace. Olivia and Daniel Carter had built their life there. A modest but cozy home on the outskirts of town, a white picket fence, and their 5-year-old daughter, Emma, who was the light of their world. For years, they had longed to expand their family. Olivia, now 30, had always dreamed of having a big, bustling household filled with love, laughter, and the pitter-patter of little feet. But fate had other plans. The long road to parenthood. After multiple miscarriages and years of failed attempts, Olivia's heart ached with every passing month that ended in disappointment. Friends and family assured her that she and Daniel were still young, that there was plenty of time, but she knew that wasn't true. With each failed pregnancy, she felt time slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Doctors had diagnosed her with unexplained infertility, a cruel verdict that left her with no answers and no clear solutions. After much discussion and hesitation, Olivia and Daniel decided to seek fertility treatments. They started with mild medications, then moved on to hormonal injections, each one a painful reminder of how much they wanted this. Nothing worked. The emotional toll was unbearable. There were nights Olivia cried herself to sleep, feeling like a failure, wondering why her body refused to do what it was meant to. Daniel, ever the optimist, held her close, whispering words of reassurance. "We'll keep trying," he said one evening as they sat on their porch swing, watching Emma chase fireflies in the summer dusk. "No matter how long it takes." An unexpected discovery. It was during their 3rd round of fertility treatments that everything changed. Olivia's body responded more strongly than expected, and during a routine ultrasound, her doctor's face took on a serious expression. "There's something I need to show you," Dr. Thompson said, adjusting the monitor. Olivia squeezed Daniel's hand as they both leaned in. The screen displayed not one, not two, but a chaotic dance of flickering heartbeats. "There are 7, the doctor said, almost in disbelief himself. Silence. Daniel's grip tightened on Olivia's hand. She turned to him, her breath caught in her throat. 7, she whispered. Dr. Thompson nodded. "You're carrying septuplets." Daniel let out a nervous laugh, as if waiting for the doctor to say it was a joke. No, seriously. 7. The doctor's face remained serious. "Yes, this is extremely rare. I won't sugarcoat it. This is a high-risk pregnancy, and there will be challenges. But with careful monitoring and medical support, we'll do everything we can to ensure their survival." The weight of his words settled over them like a thick fog. Olivia felt a mixture of shock, fear, and an almost dizzying excitement. After years of trying, after so much heartbreak, 7 babies. Her hands trembled as she placed them on her still flat stomach. Inside her, 7 tiny lives were beginning to form. 7 hearts beating in unison. Daniel let out a deep breath, rubbing his face before finally looking at her. "Liv," he whispered, "we're having 7 babies." Tears filled her eyes, a mix of joy and sheer terror. "What are we going to do?" He exhaled a shaky laugh. "We're going to love them." The first waves of change. The news spread like wildfire. Cedar Ridge, where nothing out of the ordinary ever happened, suddenly became the center of attention. Friends, family, and even complete strangers flooded their home with messages of encouragement, curiosity, and in some cases, outright disbelief. "You sure there's not a mistake?" Olivia's sister, Jessica, had asked, wide-eyed. Maybe they counted wrong. Olivia let out a soft chuckle. "I wish. But no, Jess, it's real." 7. The town held its breath, waiting to see how the pregnancy would unfold. Some people treated Olivia like a fragile glass doll, worried she would collapse under the strain. Others marveled at the sheer impossibility of it. But for Olivia, the reality was settling in fast. Her body changed at an almost frightening pace. By the time she hit the 3-month mark, she already looked 6 months pregnant. Every day, she felt her skin stretch tighter, Her muscles ached under the growing weight. Her doctor appointments became weekly, then bi-weekly. Every ultrasound showed a chaotic but miraculous sight. 7 tiny figures, growing rapidly, their tiny hands and feet wiggling. Each one is developing well, Dr. Thompson assured them. But we have to prepare for the possibility of preterm labor. With septuplets, it's almost inevitable. The word inevitable sent a shiver down Olivia's spine. A community rallies. As the months passed, the reality of raising 7 babies began to sink in. The costs alone were staggering. Cribs, car seats, diapers, bottles, formula. It was overwhelming. Then something incredible happened. The town of Cedar Ridge came together in a way Olivia and Daniel never expected. Local businesses, churches, and even complete strangers started donating supplies. The town hardware store gifted them 7 identical wooden cribs. The local grocer promised to cover the cost of diapers for the first 6 months. A group of mothers organized a meal train to ensure Olivia had home-cooked meals ready when the babies arrived. One evening, Olivia sat in the nursery, staring at the mountain of gifts that had poured in. She felt the babies moving inside her, 7 little reminders of the impossible journey they were on. Daniel knelt beside her, his hand resting on her growing belly. "We're not alone in this. Live," he said softly. "These babies are already loved by so many." Tears slipped down Olivia's cheeks. For the first time in weeks, the fear eased slightly, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The first signs of trouble. But as the pregnancy progressed, so did the risks. At just 22 weeks, Olivia woke up in the middle of the night with a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. She gasped, gripping the sheets. Daniel woke instantly. "What is it? What's wrong?" "I don't know," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Something doesn't feel right." They rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed what Olivia had feared. Her body was struggling under the immense strain. The weight of 7 growing babies was taking its toll, putting her at risk for preterm labor. "We need to be very careful," Dr. Thompson warned. "You need bed rest. Any additional stress on your body could trigger labor." Bed rest. Olivia had expected challenges, but she hadn't prepared for this. Lying in bed day after day, unable to move freely, the fear crept back in. What if her body failed them? What if she couldn't carry them long enough? One afternoon, Emma climbed onto the bed beside her, resting her tiny hand on Olivia's belly. "I can feel them moving," Emma giggled. Olivia forced a smile. "They're saying hi to their big sister." Emma's face grew serious. "Are they gonna be okay, Mommy?" Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. She wished she could promise her daughter everything would be fine. Instead, she took Emma's hand and held it against her heart. "We have to believe, sweetheart." And so, with the weight of 7 tiny lives inside her and the unwavering love of her family and community surrounding her, Olivia braced herself for the hardest part of the journey yet. Because this was only the beginning. The weight of 7 lives. The weight of 7 lives. That was what Olivia Carter carried. 7 tiny growing beings within her, each fighting for their place in the world. And at just 22 weeks, her body was already showing signs of struggle. She had expected this journey to be difficult, but nothing could have prepared her for what lay ahead, a battle against time. After the sudden pains that sent her to the hospital, Olivia was put on strict bed rest. Her doctor, Dr. Thompson, had been firm. No unnecessary movement. No stress. You need to keep these babies inside for as long as possible. But how do you carry the weight of 7 and not move? How do you live your life when you're confined to a bed, watching the world continue without you? At first, Olivia tried to stay positive. She reminded herself why she was doing this. She envisioned the moment she would hold her babies, one by one, memorizing each tiny face, each little hand curled around her finger. But as the days stretched into weeks, the reality of her situation sank in. Daniel had taken on everything, caring for Emma, managing the household, working late nights to keep up with the flood of medical bills. She watched as exhaustion wore him down, the dark circles under his eyes growing more pronounced. "Daniel, you need to rest," she pleaded one evening as he collapsed onto the chair beside her bed. He forced a smile, reaching for her hand. "I will. Just not yet." His voice was warm, but she could hear the weariness beneath it. Olivia hated feeling helpless. She wanted to be there for him. She wanted to be there for Emma, who would peek into the bedroom each morning with cautious eyes, as if afraid her mother might disappear if she blinked too long. "Mommy, when will you get up?" That question shattered Olivia every time. She wanted to say, "Tomorrow." She wanted to promise Emma she'd be back in the kitchen making pancakes, back outside watching her chase fireflies. But the truth was, she didn't know. And the uncertainty terrified her. 7 heartbeats, 1 struggle. At 25 weeks, Olivia went in for another checkup. Her belly was enormous now, stretching her skin to the point of near agony. Every movement, every shift sent waves of discomfort rippling through her body. Dr. Thompson carefully ran the ultrasound probe across her abdomen, his brows furrowed in concentration. Olivia gripped Daniel's hand, holding her breath as the rhythmic sound of 7 heartbeats filled the room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then a pause. Dr. Thompson adjusted the probe, moving it slightly before nodding. "Got it. 7. All present." Olivia exhaled, a tight knot of fear releasing in her chest. But then the doctor's expression turned serious. "They're developing well," he said, carefully choosing his words, "but we need to talk about the next few weeks. Olivia, your body is under extreme stress. Your blood pressure is climbing, and there are signs of preeclampsia beginning." Daniel tensed beside her. "What does that mean?" Dr. Thompson sighed. "Preeclampsia is dangerous, especially in a high-risk pregnancy like this. If it worsens, we may have no choice but to deliver early." Early. That word sent a shiver down Olivia's spine. "How early?" she whispered. The doctor hesitated. "Our goal is 30 weeks. But if things take a turn, we might not have that much time." 30 weeks. That was still too soon. Babies born that early faced serious complications, lung issues, underdeveloped organs, the possibility of lifelong disabilities. She could feel the panic rising in her chest. I can carry them longer," she said, gripping Daniel's hand tighter. "I just need more rest. I can do it." Dr. Thompson gave her a look of quiet sympathy. "We're doing everything we can, but we have to prepare for all possibilities." Olivia nodded, but inside, she was screaming. She wasn't ready. The babies weren't ready. The community steps in. The news of Olivia's struggle spread quickly through Cedar Ridge. The town had already embraced her as their own miracle mother, and now, they rallied around her like never before. Neighbors organized schedules to help Daniel with household chores. Local restaurants delivered hot meals every evening, ensuring he didn't have to cook. A group of women from their church took turns watching Emma, giving her playdates, making sure she never felt alone. One afternoon, Olivia was resting when she heard a soft knock at the bedroom door. Jessica, her sister, peeked inside, holding up a book. "Emma wants a bedtime story, and she wants you to read it." Olivia's heart clenched. "I can't get up, Jess." Jessica smiled. "Then we'll come to you." A few minutes later, Emma climbed onto the bed, snuggling against her mother's side. Jessica sat nearby, flipping the pages of a well-worn fairy tale book. Once upon a time, Olivia read softly, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the constant movement inside. Emma listened, wide-eyed, but halfway through the story, she did something that nearly broke Olivia's heart. She placed her tiny hand on Olivia's belly and whispered, "Please stay safe, little babies." Tears burned in Olivia's eyes. Emma had been so strong, so understanding, but Olivia knew this was hard for her too. The weight of 7 lives wasn't just on Olivia. It was on all of them. The night everything changed. At 27 weeks, Olivia woke up gasping. A sharp, searing pain ripped through her lower abdomen. She tried to sit up, but the pressure was unbearable. Daniel jolted awake beside her. "Olivia, what's wrong?" She could barely speak. "Something's wrong." Within minutes, they were in the car, speeding toward the hospital. Olivia gritted her teeth, breathing through the pain, but deep down she knew this was it. At the hospital, doctors swarmed around her, hooking her up to monitors, checking the baby's heartbeats. The tension in the room was thick. "We're seeing signs of distress in baby C," one of the nurses murmured to Dr. Thompson. "Her blood pressure is spiking," another called out. Dr. Thompson turned to Olivia, his face grim. "We need to prepare for an emergency C-section." "No," Olivia gasped. "It's too soon." He took her hand gently. "If we wait, we risk losing them." Tears streamed down her face. She wasn't ready. They weren't ready. But she didn't have a choice. As the nurses wheeled her toward the operating room, Olivia locked eyes with Daniel. "I'm scared," she whispered. He kissed her forehead, his voice breaking. "You're the strongest person I know, and you're not alone." The last thing Olivia saw before the anesthesia pulled her under was the bright surgical lights overhead. And the last thing she thought before everything went dark was a silent prayer. Please, let them survive. 7 fragile lives. Darkness. Silence. Floating in between consciousness and the unknown. Olivia Carter's world was a blur of stereo lights, muffled voices, and a weightless feeling that made her wonder if she was still alive. She drifted between awareness and oblivion, caught in the liminal space between reality and dreams. Then, suddenly, a cry. Faint, fragile, but unmistakably real. Then another, and another. 7 tiny voices, breaking through the void, pulling her back to the surface. They were here. They were alive. A fight for survival. The room was a flurry of activity. A team of neonatologists worked swiftly, stabilizing each of the 7 babies, checking vitals, ensuring their fragile bodies could handle their first breaths in the outside world. The tiniest among them, baby F, was barely larger than a hand. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, her tiny fingers twitching as if grasping for something unseen. Baby C, the one who had shown distress in the womb, was struggling the most. His oxygen levels were dangerously low, his tiny heart fighting against the odds. Dr. Thompson's voice was urgent yet calm as he directed the team. "Get them on ventilators. We need to move them to the NICU immediately." As the babies were whisked away, Olivia still lay unconscious, her body exhausted from the ordeal. Daniel stood frozen, his hands trembling as he watched his children being taken away, each one wrapped in impossibly small blankets, tubes and wires keeping them alive. "Daniel," Dr. Thompson said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "They're fighters. But the next 72 hours will be critical." Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. "And Olivia. She lost a lot of blood," the doctor admitted, "but she's stable for now." Stable, but far from safe. The NICU, a world of beeping machines and fragile hope. When Olivia finally woke, the first thing she noticed was the absence. Her arms were empty. Her belly was deflated, a hollow space where life had once grown. Then reality crashed down on her. The birth, the surgery, the babies. Where are they?" she croaked, her throat raw from the breathing tube. Daniel, who had been sitting beside her bed, bolted upright. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale from exhaustion. "They're in the NICU," he said, his voice soft but strained. "They're tiny, Olivia. So tiny." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. Are they okay?" Daniel hesitated, and that pause made her heart stop. "They're alive," he said finally, "but they're fighting." Hours later, a nurse wheeled Olivia into the NICU, the sterile environment humming with the steady beeps of monitors and the soft whoosh of ventilators. She wasn't prepared for what she saw. 7 incubators, lined up in a row. Inside each one, A baby so impossibly small, so fragile, it didn't seem real. Their skin was translucent, their limbs no thicker than her finger. Tubes and wires covered their tiny bodies, their chests rising and falling with the help of machines. Olivia choked back a sob. She had known they would be premature. She had known the risks. But nothing could have prepared her for this. The nurse placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Would you like to hold one of them?" Hold them. She hadn't even been able to touch them yet. "Yes," she whispered. "Please." The nurse carefully opened one of the incubators, lifting baby B, a little girl, just 1.9 pounds, into Olivia's trembling arms. The moment her daughter was placed against her chest, Olivia felt it. The connection. The undeniable, unbreakable bond between mother and child. The baby stirred slightly, her impossibly tiny fingers curling around Olivia's skin. And Olivia knew she would fight for them. No matter what it took. The first 72 hours, life or death. Those first 3 days were brutal. Baby C, the weakest of them all, had to be resuscitated twice. His lungs were severely underdeveloped, and doctors warned that his survival was uncertain. Baby E developed a brain bleed, a common but terrifying complication in preemies. Baby G had a dangerously low heart rate, dipping unpredictably, sending alarms blaring through the NICU at all hours. Olivia and Daniel barely slept. Every moment felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. One wrong move, and they could lose one, or more, of their children. But there were moments of hope, too. Baby A, the strongest of the 7, latched onto Olivia's finger for the first time. Baby D opened her eyes, 2 bright orbs staring up at the world, as if she had already decided she was here to stay. Tiny victories. Each heartbeat, each breath, each day that passed, they were winning. The long road ahead. At 2 weeks old, baby C developed an infection. Olivia and Daniel were told to prepare for the worst. "We're doing everything we can," the doctor said, his voice heavy. Olivia refused to accept it. She spent hours by baby C's incubator, whispering to him, singing lullabies, placing her hands on the glass as if willing him to hold on. "Stay with me, little one." Miraculously, he pulled through. But the battle was far from over. Each baby had their own struggles, their own uphill climb toward survival. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But Olivia and Daniel never gave up. They spent every waking moment in that NICU, watching, waiting, hoping. They learned the language of monitors and medical charts. They celebrated every gram gained, every moment a baby was strong enough to breathe without assistance. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, their babies grew. One by one, after months in the NICU, the septuplets reached their milestones. Baby G was the first to come home, followed by baby A and baby D. By 6 months, only baby C and baby F remained in the hospital, still too weak to leave. But Olivia knew they would make it. She had carried them for as long as she could. Now it was their turn to fight for their place in the world. And she would be right there, every step of the way, bringing them home. The day that felt impossible. Olivia Carter never imagined that a simple car ride could be so terrifying. Her heart pounded as she sat in the passenger seat, cradling baby C against her chest in a specially designed preemie carrier. In the back seat, Daniel carefully adjusted the car seat straps around baby F, making sure she was secure. It had been 6 months and 17 days since they were born. 6 months of beeping monitors, sleepless nights in the NICU, whispered prayers, and battles won and lost. 6 months of waiting for this moment. Now, for the first time, all 7 of their babies were finally coming home, and Olivia had never been more terrified. A house transformed. Their home, once a quiet, modest 2-bedroom space, now felt more like a miniature hospital ward. 7 cribs lined one side of the nursery, each personalized with name tags and tiny stuffed animals. There were oxygen tanks and heart monitors for the two weakest babies, a shelf stacked with diapers that barely lasted a week, and an entire corner dedicated to feeding supplies, bottles, formula, breast pumps, and an industrial-sized sterilizer. It was overwhelming. And yet, Olivia couldn't help but smile as she walked into the room with baby C in her arms. They were finally home. The first 24 hours, chaos and love. The first night was absolute mayhem. 1:00 a.m., baby D started crying. Olivia picked her up, rocked her, but then baby A joined in. Then baby G, and before long, it was a full-blown 7-baby symphony of wails. 1:30 a.m., Daniel fumbled with the bottle warmer while Olivia tried to burp baby C. The moment she set him down, baby E's oxygen monitor beeped. Panic. Scrambling. Adjustments. 3:00 a.m. The house smelled like baby formula, and Olivia had never been more exhausted in her life. 5:45 a.m. Just as they thought they might get a moment of rest, baby F had a blowout so disastrous it required a full bedding change. By sunrise, Olivia and Daniel felt like they had aged 10 years. But despite the exhaustion, despite the chaos, Olivia felt something new. Something she hadn't allowed herself to feel fully before. Joy. For the first time since their birth, she wasn't just their mother in a sterile hospital setting. She was their mother at home. And no amount of sleepless nights could take that away. The unseen challenges. Over the next few weeks, Olivia and Daniel settled into their new normal. But normal with 7 premature babies was anything but easy. Feeding frenzy. With 7 mouths to feed every 3 hours, Olivia and Daniel were essentially running a 24-hour baby diner. One feeding took at least an hour, followed by burping, diaper changes, and a few stolen moments of sleep before it all started again. Each baby had their own needs. Baby A, the strongest, could drink from a regular bottle. Baby C and baby F still needed feeding tubes for part of their nutrition. Baby G had severe reflux, requiring constant monitoring. By the time they reached the end of the lineup, it was almost time to start over. Medical appointments. A never-ending cycle. Premature babies required constant medical attention. At least 3 times a week, Olivia and Daniel had to take different babies to different specialists. Cardiologists to monitor heart defects. Pulmonologists for lung development. Neurologists to check for potential developmental delays. Some days, it felt like they spent more time in waiting rooms than at home. Financial struggles. Even with medical assistance, the cost of caring for 7 fragile infants was astronomical. Formula alone cost over $1,500 per month. Diapers, 1,000 plus changes every month. And then there were hospital bills, equipment rentals, and emergency funds for unexpected complications. Olivia and Daniel had always lived comfortably, but now, every dollar was stretched thinner than ever before. For the first time, Daniel considered getting a second job. But Olivia stopped him. "I don't need you working more," she told him one night, holding baby E close. "I need you here, with us." They would figure it out. Together. Moments that made it all worth it. Despite the sleepless nights and stress, there were moments of pure magic. The first time, baby D smiled at Olivia. A real, genuine smile. The moment baby C, their tiniest fighter, grabbed Daniel's finger and held on tightly. The night all 7 babies finally slept for 4 hours straight, their longest stretch yet. Each tiny milestone was a victory. A reminder that their journey, no matter how difficult, was worth it. A glimpse into the future. One evening, as Olivia rocked baby F to sleep, she thought about everything that had brought them here. She thought about the fear when they first found out about the pregnancy. The risks, the warnings, the impossibility of carrying and delivering 7 babies safely. But here they were, 7 tiny miracles. Would their journey still be hard? Absolutely. Would there be challenges they couldn't yet imagine? Without a doubt. But for the first time since this all began, Olivia wasn't afraid, because they were a family. And together, they would face whatever came next. Growing up sevenfold. 1 year later, a house full of firsts. The morning sun streamed through the nursery windows, casting a soft glow over 7 cribs lined up in perfect symmetry. Olivia stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. Baby A had pulled himself up for the first time, gripping the bars of his crib with a determined little grunt. Baby G was babbling, stringing together nonsense syllables as if she had an important story to tell. And then there was Baby F, her quiet, observant one, watching it all with wide, thoughtful eyes. It was hard to believe that a year had passed. A year of sleepless nights, endless diapers, and late-night feedings. A year of milestones, medical scares, and moments so profound they left Olivia breathless. Today, the Septuplets turned one, and their world was just beginning to unfold. The challenge of 7 toddlers. If caring for 7 infants had been overwhelming, 7 toddlers was an entirely new level of chaos. Gone were the days of tiny, swaddled babies lying peacefully in cribs. Now their home had transformed into a battlefield of baby-proofing. Cabinet locks. They figured them out in a week. Baby gates. One of them had already attempted climbing. Toys, scattered in a permanent state of disarray. And then there was the constant motion. Baby D had become an early walker, toddling around the house with wild abandon, arms outstretched for balance. Baby B, always eager to follow, crawled at lightning speed, determined to keep up. Meanwhile, Baby E had decided that climbing was his new favorite hobby, scaling furniture with frightening ease. It felt like 7 tiny tornadoes had taken over their home. And yet, Olivia wouldn't change a thing. The bond between 7. Despite their individual personalities, something magical had begun to happen. The septuplets gravitated toward one another in ways Olivia never could have imagined. When Baby G cried, Baby C would crawl over and pat her back. Baby A, the strongest, instinctively helped his smaller siblings when they wobbled while trying to stand. Baby F, the quietest, would sit and watch her siblings, offering an occasional toy as if she understood what each one needed. It was an unspoken language, a bond that only they could understand. And it made Olivia's heart swell with pride. The first words and unforgettable moments. One evening, as Daniel was setting up the high chairs for dinner, a tiny voice called out, "Dada." Silence. Daniel froze, eyes wide as he turned to find Baby E grinning up at him. It was their first real word. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Within weeks, each of them had discovered their voices. Baby A, no, his favorite word. Baby G, uh-oh, usually after dropping food on the floor. Baby D, mama. Olivia had burst into tears when she heard it. Baby B, baba, meaning bottle, but also brother. Their home, once filled with coos and giggles, now echoed with chattering little voices. It was loud, it was chaotic, and Olivia loved every second of it. Outings, the spectacle of 7, taking the septuplets anywhere was an event. Even a simple grocery trip required military-level coordination. 2 double strollers, 1 extra cart for supplies, diaper bags packed like survival kits. Every time they went out, people stared. Some whispered, others pointed, and inevitably someone would ask, "Are they all yours?" At first, Olivia had found the attention overwhelming, but over time, she learned to embrace it. "Yes," she would say with a smile, "and they're the best thing that ever happened to us." Because no matter how challenging it was, she wouldn't trade it for the world. Medical struggles, a reminder of their fragility. Despite their progress, some challenges lingered. Baby C, the smallest of the 7, had frequent respiratory infections. Baby G had a mild hearing impairment that required early intervention. And Baby F's muscle development was slower than the others, requiring weekly therapy sessions. There were moments when Olivia lay awake at night, wondering if they were doing enough, if she was enough. But then she would see her babies laugh, play, and grow. And she knew that, despite the struggles, they were thriving. And that was all that mattered. A glimpse into the future. As Olivia rocked baby D to sleep one night, she thought about the years ahead. First days of school, first friendships, first dreams. She thought about their unbreakable bond, the way they looked out for one another, and the way they had already overcome so much. Would raising septuplets continue to be hard? Absolutely. But she and Daniel had learned something in this journey. They could handle anything. Because they weren't just parents to 7 babies. They were parents to 7 miracles. And their story was just beginning. The road ahead. 7 lives, 7 dreams. As the septuplets approached their 5th birthday, Olivia and Daniel found themselves reflecting on how far they had come. Their once fragile preemies had grown into strong, unique individuals, each with their own quirks, talents, and dreams. Baby E, now Alex, the bold leader, always the first to try something new. Baby B, now Bella, the creative one, drawn to painting and storytelling. Baby C, now Caleb, the quiet thinker, always deep in observation. Baby D, now Daniela, the adventurer, always climbing and exploring. Baby E, now Elijah, the comedian, filling the house with laughter. Baby F, now Faith, the gentle soul, always caring for her siblings. Baby G, now Gabriel, the problem solver, always figuring out puzzles. 7 completely different children, yet bound by an unbreakable connection. The first day of school, a milestone like no other. The house was buzzing with excitement. Backpacks lined the entryway. Tiny shoes were neatly placed in a row. Olivia had spent the past week labeling lunchboxes, ironing uniforms, and preparing them for their first big step into the world. But as she helped them get dressed, a pang of anxiety gripped her heart. Would they be okay? Would they make friends? Would they be treated as individuals instead of a unit? She knelt down, looking into their eager faces. "You are all amazing, exactly as you are," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Be kind, be brave, and always, always look out for each other." As they marched into school, holding hands in pairs, Olivia and Daniel stood at the gate, watching them go. For the first time in 5 years, the house would be quiet. But their journey was far from over. The reality of raising 7. As the septuplets grew, so did the logistical challenges. Grocery bills, astronomical. Laundry, never-ending. Homework, a full-time job in itself. Extracurricular activities, a scheduling nightmare. Olivia had become an expert in meal prep, budgeting, and time management. Daniel took on carpools, late-night science projects, and bedtime stories. It was exhausting. It was overwhelming. But it was also incredibly rewarding. Because despite the madness, they were thriving. Sibling rivalry and unbreakable bonds. With 7 children so close in age, competition was inevitable. "Why does Alex get to go first? Bella took my crayons. Elijah is cheating at the game." There were arguments, tears, tantrums. But for every fight, there were twice as many moments of love. When Caleb felt nervous about a class presentation, Faith held his hand all night. When Daniela scraped her knee, Gabriel ran to get a bandage. When Bella struggled with math, Elijah sat beside her, helping her understand. They fought. They laughed. They grew. And no matter what, they stood together. The teenage years, new challenges, new dreams. By the time the septuplets turned 13, life had changed in ways Olivia and Daniel never expected. Individuality became more important. Some wanted to be seen as more than just one of the 7. Interests diverged. Where once they did everything together, they now had their own hobbies, their own friends, their own goals. Personal struggles surfaced. Some faced insecurities, academic pressure, first heartbreaks, and social struggles. One night, Olivia found Daniela sitting on the porch, staring at the sky. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Olivia asked, sitting beside her. Daniela sighed. "Mom, sometimes. It's hard being one of 7. Everyone thinks we're the same, but we're not. I love my siblings, but I want people to see me. For me." Olivia's heart ached. She had always been so proud of their unity, their closeness. But now she realized they needed space to become their own people. And that was okay. College and the first separation. When the Septuplets turned 18, the reality of their next step hit hard. For the first time in their lives, they would be apart. Some wanted to go to college. Some wanted to travel. Some wanted to work right away. As they packed their bags, Olivia couldn't hold back the tears. Would they still be as close? Would distance change them? But then Alex, the eldest, hugged her and said, "Mom, no matter where we go, we'll always come back to each other." And with that, they stepped into the world, ready to chase their own dreams. Full circle. The next chapter. Years passed. The house that was once bursting with noise and life now felt quiet. But then, one by one, they returned. For holidays, for birthdays, for the moments that mattered. And as Olivia and Daniel sat at the dinner table, surrounded by their grown children, they knew their story wasn't just about raising 7 children. It was about raising a family that would last for generations. A family that would always find their way back home.